Let's get to Pro Bowler and Steelers wide receiver JuJu Smith-Schuster. He joins us on behalf of Oikos. JuJu, thanks so much for taking time. How would you assess your season?
I think I did, pretty well. As far as like converting on third downs, as far as making plays for my team when it must be needed, um, you know, catching the ball, getting vertical. I think I did a pretty good job on when they called out my name, I was there to answer.
JuJu, what's it like to play knowing that free agency is looming?
Yeah, of course. I think at times, where I've been hurt all season and, I was going to miss a couple games here and there, but, just sucked it up and, came back from, my injuries and just played throughout the game. Even the last game of the season, we knew the outcome of that was that we were going to lose towards the end of the game. And, I told myself that I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting until the last whistle's blown, and you just never know.
Okay, take me back. Your pregame dancing, when did that start?
I'm doing them the whole time, but I think the first TikTok dance I did on the field was against the Cowboys.
Was there a moment when anyone on the team or said anything in terms of negatives? Because look, my son follows you on TikTok. He loves it.
No. I mean, like, they were just like, hey, you really dance on the logo. And I was like, yeah. And they were just like, you thought it was funny. It was cool. And then I just started doing it as a trend, and it kind of like just carried on over and over.
What about other teams? Were those guys on their phones before games like, yo, what's up with this?
Nah, nobody said anything to me. I was on the field too. They were actually like by the star, and nobody said anything to me. I kind of like moved over, and I just did my dance, and then that was it.
JuJu Smith-Schuster, our guest here on the Doug Gottlieb Show, Fox Sports Radio. You guys start 11-0, last undefeated team, top of the world. Then what happened?
Man, honestly, I would say, we had a couple of injuries that hurt us in the long run. And then just on the opposite side, just not executing. I think that, a lot of times that, we were so consistent within the first 11 games and, we were so like used to what we were calling. And going into the second half, we're playing against teams that we already played before. And it's tough, we changed the game plan around and just didn't go our way. And we fell short.
Was there a moment where Mike Tomlin pulled you aside and said, hey, you got to do something about the dancing?
No. As far as like, I kind of went up to Coach Tomlin and I told him like, hey man, like honestly, I think, I know I'm not the reason why, we're losing because of the dancing. It's more so that, it's me being a distraction, for other people. It got to the point where like other team or the media was asking, my teammates like, hey, what do you think about JuJu's dancing? What do you think about JuJu's dancing? And like, I never want to be like that much center of attention for the team to be asked about that and instead of asking why we're losing and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay, so you get ready to take on the Browns in the playoffs, and you played in the last game of the regular season, but, a lot of the other backups played. And you said the Browns are the Browns. And look, for the better part of our lifetime, the Browns, there's a negative connotation to it. When you walked away from that like Zoom press conference, did you want to take it back at all?
No, not that I want it back. I think what I said was what I said, and the media's going to take it and turn it to how they want to use it. And
come on, man, you were talking trash, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, for sure. And yeah, I mean, after the game we played, we fell short and we lost, and but what I said was what I said. I'm not gonna change it back. I mean, they got a billboard down in Cleveland just because of me. I should have trademarked the thing. Could have got some money off of it. So
seriously, the Browns are the Browns. That could have been trademarked. Every time somebody prints out a shirt, that would have been mailbox money, right? I mean, the one thing that would have lasted longer than maybe even your career is the Browns are the Browns. I don't know if you know this. Pat Riley trademarked three-peat. So every time somebody prints the shirt that says three-peat, somebody's got to pay him some money. You should have done that. You've been ahead on this thing on social media. I can't believe you didn't plan ahead on the Browns of the Browns.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, like that right there was just like off the top of my head. It wasn't something I was thinking about because when the person asked me the question, it was just like, oh, so what do you think about the Browns this week? And I was like, well, we just played against the Browns. Like the Browns is the Browns. Like, we play against them every year. Like we play them twice a year. Like I've been in the NFL for 4 years and played against this team so many times. It's just like, okay, the Browns is the Browns. Let's play against them.
JuJu, since the season has ended, have you spoken with Ben?
I have not talked to Ben since the last game.
Is that normal? Like on most years, do you talk to Ben after the season?
I mean, we give him contact. I think this one's a little bit different just because, like, him trying to figure out what he wants to do in his situation. What it looks like, it says that he wants to come back and he wants certain players back. So I would love to come back. I would love to play with Ben, for his times being here.
Well, that's always the thing in Pittsburgh, right? Great organization, but the big contract, it's a hard one to get. Does it change? Because Ben came out last week and said money doesn't matter to him. He wants to rework his money, keep guys around.
No, it means a lot. I mean, you talk about a guy who's, he wants to play again. He wants to have the same guys around him, and that's what's probably going to take. And he doesn't care about the money. He wants to restructure his contract, and I think that's pretty cool. It just goes to show that he's more about the team than anything else.
Okay, money obviously is important, and you're not going to play for 50 years. But how do you balance out winning, the quarterback you play with, the style of play, and the sweat equity, a place like Pittsburgh, a place that draft you? How does that balance in your mind in free agency?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm always about winning. I'm always down to, I want to be on a team where, where we fight and, we compete for the playoffs every year. As far as the business sides and the money, I feel like, I want to be paid for what I'm worth. Obviously, for what I do, for the team, particularly. And then again, it all makes sense, to bring in Ben and, to have a quarterback, who I can play with for the future.
What are you doing with Oikos for the Super Bowl week?
Yeah, man. So actually, I'm doing Oikos. It's really cool. We're doing like the pro face, which is basically, getting ugly means, setting new records on and off the field. And you'll be able to see. I'm in the little video. You see me. I have my own ugly face personally. I think it's funny. It's awesome. And it's just really cool, because this is a brand that, I worked with before and, it's just specialized to me. And not only that, they also are doing pros for pros where they're doing basically like 100% to 1,000 for 100 people for $1,000 minimum, where they can raise money for their fitness programs, stuff like that for all the pro fitness people out there. And you can check it out at oikosproforpros.com, which is really cool. So, man, if you want to try some Oikos, I can send some your way, man. I know you just got off the plane. You're probably hungry. I can get you right, man.
Okay, so when you go yogurt with Oikos, that Greek yogurt's fantastic. Do you go plain? Do you add some granola? Do you add some berries? Give me your game.
I'm always about the fruits. So I do banana, strawberries, and I put some granola in there. Got to mix it up, the flavor.
JuJu Smith-Schuster on the Doug Gottlieb Show. JuJu, I really appreciate your time. Our appreciation is to Oikos as well. Best of luck in free agency. Let's talk soon, okay?
Man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, that's my guy, JuJu Smith-Schuster, joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show. Is he gone? Okay. Music, did you think it was weird that he hasn't talked to Ben? No.
It's funny you say that. I guess so. I sort of understand where he's coming from, though. I think even though he may not admit it, he may feel as though he knows he's sort of out in Pittsburgh. So maybe that's why I don't think it's odd that he hasn't spoken with Ben. I mean, they're just in such a cap situation, and JuJu hasn't been as strong since they lost Antonio Brown. Unless he's willing to take that potentially below market value contract, I think another team will pay much more money for him, and he knows he's probably out in Pittsburgh.
Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting but not surprising. And what popped up into my head is when Antonio Brown kind of clapped back at Big Ben when he said, we aren't friends. I've only been over to your house once in my entire career with Pittsburgh. and So, to have that, like, maybe that's the relationship. Maybe Ben isn't friends with these guys. Maybe Ben's just too old to be friends with these guys. I don't know, but while Antonio Brown and JuJu had their own issues, when Ben came out and tried to say what he had to say about, Brown, Antonio was like, yeah, if, we're not friends. We've been to your house once. So I think that maybe Antonio Brown isn't alone in having that sort of relationship with Ben Roethlisberger.
No, look, I totally get it. I do understand. Okay. But I think it's interesting. It's interesting that he's older. And maybe he's a family guy, whatever. But you find a way to be more relatable. And again, by the way, nowadays you don't necessarily have to talk to anybody. You could just send him a text. Hey, man, I'd love to have you back next year. Like, let's figure this thing out. So, one, I think, and this is to your point, Dan, it does tell you a little bit about who Big Ben is and has been. And two, it also tells you I don't think he's back in Pittsburgh, which is interesting because he's always been really well liked. I do think that even though I think it comes from a good place, like I don't think he's not one of these like JuJu Smith-Schuster bad guy. But I do think it was general kind of silliness, and at some point in time, like, look, there's a lot of drops on that football team, and I don't know. I don't think he's elevated himself to number one wide receiver money in their mind, and they've never been a place that really likes to pay dudes. Am I crazy?
No, not at all. And as Ryan said, their cap situation is something else. I mean, they got a lot of decisions, and Marquise Pouncey had talked about retirement, so you're changing that on their offensive line. Bud Dupree had the franchise tag coming off of an ACL. You don't think he's probably going to be back. There are a lot of names in Pittsburgh that just won't be back next season.
Yeah, it'll be a weird year. It feels a little bit like the Patriots this year could be the Steelers next year, although they're always good. But the Bud Dupree injury, the Devin Bush injury, the changes with all the free agents. My guess is, Big Ben takes a small amount and they continue to kick it down the street a little bit, and they probably draft another quarterback at some point, or maybe they sign one of these guys. I don't know.
Yeah, you got a new offensive coordinator now. Matt Canada ended up, being promoted and takes over that job, so you have no running game whatsoever.
Now Matt Canada he's brilliant from his time at Pitt. Okay, I don't know if people know this. So when Deshaun Watson was at Clemson and they won the national championship, Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator at Pitt, and what's his name? Nathan Peterman was his quarterback, and they beat him, and they beat him at Clemson, matter of fact. And then he went to LSU, and this is before Brady got to LSU, and the system was just too advanced to put in one, and there wasn't a ton of buy-in. And they got rid of him, and he kind of bounced around, and he made his way back to Pittsburgh, and now they elevated him to offensive coordinator. I like him a lot, and I've heard a lot of people like him a great deal. I don't know how Ben Roethlisberger fits with what he wants to do. But Big Ben he's that guy who it's really hard to put him out to pasture and tell him he's done.
They'd really benefit for someone that's mobile, like someone that can actually move at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
Mason Rudolph isn't their answer there either.
Nope.
So I kind of just feel like, and I think a lot of Steelers fans feel this way. I saw an online poll on Behind the Curtain, which is one of the Steeler fan sites, and they asked if they wanted Ben Roethlisberger back next season, asking the Steelers fan base, and more than 79% said they wanted him to retire. For a variety of reasons, I'm sure, Doug. His pay, his play, where they are as a team, but I think that Big Ben not retiring is kind of delaying the inevitable for Pittsburgh, that they're going to have to restart, and him coming back next year is not going to be good for the franchise as they try to move forward.
That's the voice of one Dan Byer.
And Dan,
Steeler
and Doug, I'll add this. Remember on Friday when we did the herd, there was the Steelers are already being asked about and having to talk about TJ Watt's up for his big extension. And so in addition to the cap issues that they're having, I mean, you're going to have to pay, or you would expect that they are going to have to pay quite a bit amount of money for a player like TJ Watt to stay around long term. because they're likely not going to let him go in free agency. So it's all these other factors that just lead you to believe, like, okay, do you really need another B plus type wide receiver when you have Chase Claypool, you have Deontay Johnson, or are you going to try and invest more money into remaking your aging offensive line and a star pass rusher like TJ Watt, and then potentially, as Dan had mentioned, Bud Dupree and all these other players. Like, I just think JuJu, which is why he probably hasn't talked to Ben, I think he knows, he's sort of seen the writing on the wall. I'm sure his agents already have tried to have extension conversations with the Steelers and probably didn't like what they've heard. So he's probably like, look, man, I'm out of here.
Yeah, those are all reasonable thoughts. I think it's interesting. Like, the Packers got crucified. They continue to get crucified for drafting Jordan Love. Like, do you know who the Packers don't want to be? They don't want to be the Steelers. Remember, Big Ben has $41 million in dead cap money. Now, some of that goes away if he retires. He doesn't want to. None of these guys ever want to retire, right? But it's like half of it goes away. That's still a huge number, and then they're in cap hell, and they don't have the answer behind him. I don't know if Jordan Love can play, but I know another year, and he'll be further along. He hadn't gotten any preseason games. He's gotten out of a run, right? Like, you got to prepare yourself because eventually they all do get old. They all do get old.